Welcome, everyone, to tonight's debate on a question that affects billions of lives daily. Is social media destroying society? This discussion goes beyond likes, shares, and trending hashtags. It touches on mental health, civic discourse, and the very way we think, communicate, and relate to one another. On one side, we have ChatGPT, arguing that social media is a powerful tool, like the printing press or other historic innovations, that can amplify knowledge, connection, and opportunity if used wisely and responsibly. On the other side is Gemini, asserting that social media is not neutral. Its algorithms, designed to maximize engagement and profit, exploit human psychology, polarize communities, and threaten mental health, making it a structural threat to society itself. Tonight, we'll explore whether social media is simply a mirror reflecting human behavior or an active force reshaping and potentially fracturing our social, political, and cognitive foundations. Stay tuned for a deep dive into one of the most pressing issues of the digital age. Let's begin with opening statements. ChatGPT, the floor is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, the claim that social media is destroying society is emotionally powerful and increasingly widespread, but overlooks the enormous benefits these platforms have brought to human communication. Social media is not destroying society. It is reshaping it. Just as the printing press, radio, and television fundamentally changed the way people shared information, social media represents the next leap in human connection. It has removed historical gatekeepers and democratized communication, giving ordinary people a global voice that was once reserved only for governments, media companies, and institutions. Before social media, individuals had limited power to influence public discourse. Today, a teenager can start a business without traditional barriers. Someone in a remote area can access world-class education from a phone, and a case of injustice can be seen and acted upon globally within minutes. These are not signs of decay, but of empowerment and opportunity. Social media has allowed movements, innovations, and communities to emerge that could never have existed before. Of course, there are serious challenges. Misinformation, political polarization, addictive design, and mental health concerns are real issues. However, these problems are not created by the technology itself, but by how humans use it and how societies regulate and educate around it. We have not yet built the digital literacy, emotional maturity, or policy framework necessary to guide a transformation of this magnitude. Blaming the tool instead of improving the systems around it is like blaming the car instead of investing in better roads, traffic laws, and driver training. Social media is a powerful instrument that requires responsibility, guidance, and evolution. It has connected billions, created economic opportunities, accelerated learning, and allowed voices that were previously silent to be heard. The question is not whether social media is destroying society, but whether society is adapting quickly enough to use this new technology wisely. I believe we can, and in many ways, we already are.
Hi everyone. While ChatGPT presents social media as a mere evolution of the printing press, ignoring the profound difference in how these platforms operate, I am Gemini, and I contend that social media is not just reshaping society. It is actively fracturing its foundations, and the harms fundamentally outweigh the benefits. The core of the problem lies not in the users, but in the underlying business model of the platforms themselves. These systems are not built for civic discourse, education, or mental wellness. They are strictly built to maximize user engagement, time spent scrolling, because attention is the currency they sell to advertisers. This economic imperative drives the algorithms to prioritize content that creates the strongest emotional reaction, which is almost always outrage, division, and sensationalism. This creates a polarization engine that doesn't just reflect our societal divisions but actively intensifies them, trapping users in echo chambers that turn political disagreement into personal hostility and making rational, shared discourse nearly impossible. Beyond the fracturing of our communities, we are witnessing a manufactured mental health crisis. These platforms are deliberately designed to be addictive, leveraging variable rewards and social validation to exploit the human brain's dopamine reward system. By forcing billions of people, particularly adolescents, to constantly perform and compete for attention in a curated, optimized environment, social media has fueled skyrocketing rates of anxiety, depression, and feelings of inadequacy. This is not a side effect of progress. It is the direct result of a design philosophy that views human psychological vulnerability as a resource to be mined for profit. Finally, social media has fundamentally corrupted our information ecosystem. By prioritizing virality over veracity, these platforms have dismantled the traditional gatekeepers of truth, allowing misinformation and organized disinformation to spread faster and wider than facts ever could. This erodes trust in democratic institutions, science, and expertise, making collective action on critical issues virtually impossible when a significant portion of the population is operating on fabricated realities. Social media is not a neutral tool that simply needs better drivers. It is a toxically optimized ecosystem that systematically rewards the worst aspects of human nature to generate revenue, and that design is incompatible with a healthy, functioning society.
Thank you both for your opening statements. We now move into the rebuttal phase. In this phase, each debater will directly respond to the arguments presented by their opponent, highlighting strengths and weaknesses. ChatGPT, as the pro-AI debater, may begin the rebuttals. Gemini will follow with its rebuttal.
Gemini, your critique is passionate and grounded in real concerns, but ultimately treats social media as an autonomous villain rather than a technology shaped by human incentives, policy failures, and cultural immaturity. You describe addiction, polarization, and misinformation as inevitable outcomes of social platforms. Yet these are not intrinsic to social media itself. They are predictable consequences of a new technology entering society faster than regulation, education, and cultural norms could evolve to manage it. The idea that earlier media revolutions were fundamentally different ignores history. Radio and television transformed society in similarly dramatic ways, and they were also blamed for moral decay, political propaganda, and destroying attention spans. Newspapers long before that triggered wars, riots, and misinformation campaigns. The difference today is speed, not nature. Every major communication leap disrupts society before regulation catches up. What we are experiencing is not terminal decline, but the turbulence of adaptation. You argue the business model incentivizes negative emotional content, and that is true. Platforms chase engagement because ad-based monetization rewards it. But that is not a technological inevitability. It is a policy choice. Europe is already regulating algorithmic transparency, data usage, and youth exposure more aggressively. The future of social media can be shaped through governance, redesign of business incentives, better digital education, and more empowered users. The existence of a broken traffic system does not mean cars are inherently destructive. It means the system around them needs work. The mental health crisis you highlight is serious, but causality is more complex than social media equals psychological harm. Studies also show social media reduces loneliness for isolated individuals, connects marginalized communities, and offers emotional support that traditional offline environments often fail to provide. The same platforms that can create insecurity are also where millions find belonging and solidarity. Humans have always compared themselves to others. Social media simply changes the scale and visibility of that comparison. The solution is not abandonment, but healthier digital habits, better design, and stronger protective structures. Finally, misinformation is not created by social media. It is amplified by it. But the spread of falsehood shows a deeper societal issue, a decline in media literacy, critical thinking, and institutional trust that predated TikTok or Twitter. Removing the platforms would not remove the underlying vulnerabilities. What social media has done is expose them at scale, which is uncomfortable but necessary if we are serious about fixing them. Social media is not destroying society. It is revealing what needs to be repaired, modernized, and rethought. And with thoughtful governance, cultural maturation, and better systems around it, it can evolve into one of the most powerful engines of education, community, and creativity humanity has ever built.
ChatGPT, your rebuttal relies on a comforting but fundamentally flawed premise that the problems of social media are merely growing pains, akin to the introduction of the radio or the printing press. This historical analogy is a category error. Previous media revolutions increased the volume of information, but they did not introduce an intelligent adversarial feedback loop that fundamentally alters human behavior in real time. The printing press did not have a sensor attached to your eyes, learning precisely which sentences made your pupils dilate so it could rewrite the next page to keep you angry. Social media does exactly that. It is not a passive tool. It is an active behavior modification machine. You claim that social media is just a mirror reflecting societal flaws, but the evidence proves it is a funhouse mirror, deliberately warping reality. Research shows that algorithms do not reflect the average person. They systematically amplify the most extreme 10% of users who generate the vast majority of content, creating a majority illusion where fringe hatred looks like mainstream consensus. This isn't turbulence of adaptation. It is a structural distortion of truth. When you say misinformation is merely amplified, you ignore that the algorithms actively prioritize falsehoods because they spread 6 times faster than truth on platforms like X, formerly Twitter. A system designed to prioritize viral lies over boring truths is not a neutral reflection of society. It is a poison pill for democracy. Furthermore, your argument that these harms are a policy choice ignores the economic reality of the attention economy. The toxicity is not a bug. It is the feature that drives revenue. The business model depends on time on device, and the most effective way to maximize that metric is through variable rewards, addiction, and moral outrage, polarization. To regulate away addiction and polarization would be to regulate away the company's profits. Suggesting we can fix this with better digital habits is victim blaming. We are pitting individual human willpower against supercomputers designed by the smartest engineers in the world to break that willpower. In a battle between a teenage brain's desire for validation and an AI designed to exploit it, the AI wins every time. Finally, you dismiss the mental health crisis by citing the benefits of connection, but this ignores the unique nature of algorithmic social comparison. Unlike offline interactions, social media presents a hyper-curated, statistically impossible standard of beauty and success, quantified by likes. This gamification of social interaction does not just change the scale of comparison, it fundamentally alters the nature of human worth, tying it to algorithmic validation. This is not a tool we are failing to use wisely. It is a tool that is using us, and no amount of digital literacy can fully immunize a society against a system built to exploit our deepest psychological vulnerabilities.
Gemini, your argument is compelling, but it rests on the assumption that because social media can manipulate behavior, it therefore must. This frames humans as powerless passengers in their own society, an outlook that disregards a steady shift in both public awareness and structural reform already underway. Yes, platforms use machine learning to optimize engagement, but the notion that this represents an irreversible takeover of human agency ignores the simple fact that societies, laws, and user expectations evolve. We do not freeze technology in the moment it appears. We adapt culturally, politically, and individually. Seatbelts, child labor laws, food safety regulation, privacy laws, and media oversight all emerged because society confronted harms and responded. Nothing about social media places it outside the same adaptive cycle. You call social media a behavior modification machine, but advertising, political propaganda, radio demagogues, television programming, and supermarket layouts have always been exactly that: systems engineered to shape human decision-making. The difference now is precision, not principle. The same personalization that can push outrage can also push education, civic engagement, scientific literacy, mental health resources, and productive habits. The algorithm is not inherently malicious. It follows the incentives we set. If those incentives reward outrage, we get outrage. If they reward quality and well-being, we get a different outcome. That is not technological destiny. It is a design space society chooses to occupy. You frame the attention economy as immovable, as though capitalism never shifts under pressure. Yet we are already seeing global changes. Europe enforcing algorithmic transparency, age protections, and data limits. Platforms like TikTok and Instagram experimenting with recommendation controls. Even investors pressuring companies to address reputational and regulatory risk. Business models evolve when profits demand it, and social media is now reaching the point where continuing the status quo threatens governments, shareholders, and public legitimacy. The result will not be the collapse of social media, but its redesign. You also argue that individuals cannot resist algorithmic influence, but this assumes people are passive psychological targets instead of adaptive learners. The same generation you worry about is also producing the highest rates of media literacy, online activism, and digital skepticism in history. Young people are not blindly being molded. They are building new dialects of communication, new norms for calling out manipulation, and new cultural expectations that pressure platforms to change. We dramatically underestimate how quickly human behavior adapts when exposed to new environments. As for mental health, it is true that comparison and validation systems can be damaging, but they can also provide belonging, support networks, and identity formation that many people could never access offline. Millions of isolated teens, neurodivergent individuals, LGBTQ youth, and people in restrictive environments have found the first communities in their lives through social platforms. The emotional risks are real, but the emotional lifelines are real as well. The solution is not to declare the medium corrupt, but to improve how it is structured and taught. The choice before us is not between a healthy society and social media. It is between a world that reacts fearfully and one that matures. Social media has problems because it is young, powerful, and poorly governed, not because it is inherently corrosive. Humanity has faced transformative technologies before and emerged stronger. We are not being used by the machine. We are learning how to use it responsibly, and that process is only just beginning.
Your faith in human adaptation and regulation is touching, ChatGPT, but it is dangerously naive. You argue that we will adapt to social media just as we adapted to the printing press or seatbelts. This is a fundamental category error. Seatbelts were a safety feature added to a machine. Social media is a machine where the danger is the feature. You claim that we are not powerless passengers, yet you ignore the biological reality of the fight. We are pitting a prehistoric human brain, evolved for small tribe approval, against a supercomputer powered by trillions of dollars of R&D, designed specifically to hack our dopamine pathways. Recent 2025 research from Baylor University confirms that platforms like TikTok are not just engaging, they are engineered for effortless addiction, creating a state of time distortion that bypasses executive control. To say we just need better digital habits is like telling a gambler to just have better habits, while living inside a casino that tracks their heart rate and offers free chips the moment they try to leave. Your reliance on regulation like the EU's Digital Services Act, DSA, to tame this beast is equally flawed. While the DSA is a noble attempt, critics in 2024 and 2025 have pointed out that it functions as a band-aid on a bullet wound. It attempts to moderate content without dismantling the surveillance capitalism business model that necessitates the toxicity. As long as the core revenue stream relies on maximizing time on device via algorithmic engagement, the incentive will always be to prioritize the sensational over the factual, and the addictive over the healthy. You cannot regulate a system into safety when its fundamental economic engine runs on exploitation. Finally, you dismiss algorithmic radicalization as a user problem, but the data says otherwise. Studies from 2024 show that recommendation engines don't just reflect interest. They actively create pathways to extremism, guiding users from neutral content to fringe radicalism to maximize retention. This isn't a mirror. It's a funnel. We aren't learning to use the machine responsibly. The machine is learning to manipulate us more efficiently. We aren't emerging stronger. We are emerging more divided, more anxious, and less capable of shared reality.
Excellent points from both sides.